David Sneyd is with us. Good morning to you.
Morning, Jerry.
How are you?
I'm very well, very well.
You said that you were watching the game getting a little bit depressed last night because of the amount of goals that Liverpool scored in the Champions League.
Well, it was more so, last night you're looking at kind of, as it was ratcheting up, and I'm thinking, Jesus, that's 10 goals. It was like 11 goals, 12 goals, 13 goals over two legs between Real and Roma, and then I'm thinking, many goals have Irish players scored in the Premier League this season?
What's the answer?
11.
11. Not our greatest season.
It's actually shaping up to be the worst ever. I think last year was 18, and top scorers were John Walters and Seamus Coleman.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah, and then that's what really hit me kind of last night. It's the sort of a topic that's kind of been well covered in terms of since Robbie Keane has left and stuff, where the goals are going to come from. But I think last night, no, that's the elite, that's the Champions League semi-final and stuff. But it sort of hammers home the kind of the dirt that's available to Martin.
Do you know the one thing? Aidan Fitzmaurice has wrote the piece I mentioned earlier on the last day promotion for the Championship, but I mentioned Kevin Long earlier on. So I think it's just the problems that we're continuously going to find as well, or going to find, is getting our lads into teams in the Premier League. Kevin Long, still relatively inexperienced at that level, he's 27 years of age. So this is the problem. He moved in in 2010, I think it was, from Cork City. Yeah. So how long has it taken him to get fully established? This is the problem.
Because I was reading it earlier this morning, and so there's.
He's one of those scorers as well, by the way. Yeah, we've got to give him a mention there as well.
Actually, I think he was the most recent actually as well. But actually, interestingly, Shane Duffy. You would think Shane Duffy would have scored.
Yeah.
He hasn't, which is. But I think he has the most clearances, so he's obviously decent at one box. But with Kevin, I know just extenuating circumstances, he had a couple of bad injuries, and it's taken him a while. But it's interesting still to hear him say at 27 that he's getting used to playing at that level, and you're sort of thinking at 27, even if you've had a couple of injuries, you should be getting.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's saying. I think he probably doesn't want. I think sometimes you know when you're doing the interview, it's not so much a throwaway line, but he's actually just saying it as it feels. Look, I've not got the experience at this level. I am still kind of finding my feet to an extent. No matter what age you get to that level, you only need to look at Jamie Vardy, the age that he got when he got into Premier League level, the amount of goals that he's scoring consistently now. Sometimes you can be a little bit fazed by what's actually around the corner.
In fairness to him, he's got into that team this year with Burnley. He's forced his way in, and I think he's.
It's harder to get out of that team sometimes. Like once you're in, you should be in for a while. It's obviously an offset. It's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah. Jeff Hendrick is he's out now. He hasn't played hasn't started a game for the last 5 matches.
Right.
Since the Turkey game.
He's gone a bit more positive. He's actually playing the two lads up front. So he's playing Ashley Barnes and Chris Wood, where Jeff Hendrick was playing as the more attacking midfielder, the extra one to try to get in support of attack. So he's fallen out. Yeah.
But as well with Kevin Long, I remember obviously it was a bit of a surprise when he got thrown in for his full debut against Austria, but was over at Burnley at the start of the season, just chatting to John Walters, and I was just chatting to him afterwards. He was saying when he first training session, he was smashing through people in training, like winning everything in the air and looking really commanding and stuff. And he even though he's talking there about, as you say, maybe it's a bit of a throwaway line or it's promising. It's promising for next season.
Well, I think as well, certainly in relation to Kevin Long, probably about 4 years ago now, when I was completing my coaching badges, I did my coaching badges with Michael Duff, who's a Northern Irish international who played at Burnley, and he mentioned Kevin Long to me. He said, "Kev, this lad's a player." Right. He said he's going to have a big future. He made his debut, of course, his Premier League debut, and he did his cruise ship in his debut. So you know that's a massive setback. When all of a sudden you get to that level. Was that about 3 years ago now? Was it there 2 or 3 years ago?
First time they were up, wasn't it?
Yeah, first time they were up. You're right. Yeah. So that's a setback then for another year or two. And as you say with Burnley, the way that he plays, if you get in that side, it's difficult to get out of it.
Yeah.
So he just sticks with what he knows. He sticks with personnel. That is the difficulty that he's found to get anywhere near it again.
There is a trend in world football too for centre backs to be emerging a little bit later than they would have done a decade, 2 decades ago, because of the way that most training is not as contact based as it used to be. It's very hard for players. Remember we did a piece on this a couple of years back, and there was just a general sense that there is a real dearth of quality centre halves, and they're maturing much later, around the time 25 to 28, and probably they can go on a good bit longer with conditioning and whatever else that footballers are doing these days.
Well, you would hope that's going to be the case with Kevin Long, considering he hasn't played that many games. You wonder how the injuries affect him. You probably know yourself in terms of kind of getting over an injury, and he's had a couple of them as well. So it's kind of mentally to get back in. He's made of strong enough stuff, and you're talking about a lack of centre halves. You would hope then, like him and Shane Duffy for the next few years, you would think that's going to have the makings
of. We've got a couple of campaigns out of them both at the very least. I think even Kieran Clark over the last few years, I think he's actually played well for Newcastle. So
he's out of the team now as well, though.
Yeah, exactly. He's not getting his game time.
When was the golden era of Irish players scoring in the Premier League? What's the peak? If this is the worst season of all time, not to put you on the spot.
Well,
no, that's obviously there's one.
I'm not sure what I'm more impressed with there is hair.
There you go.
Oh, they were the days. That's when I could actually score a goal. That's when I actually scored one or two half decent goals during the day. Yeah. I don't even know. I don't even remember half.
That's
the
your
goals.
own fans. Probably.
That looks like Blackburn. That one actually. I don't know. You know what he said? Yeah. You forget them. They come and go very quickly, and you forget about it. It's only when someone actually shows you a few little YouTube clips, I suppose, as well. But
the caption on this one, and I'm not lying, is "Disbelieving Everton fans look on as Kevin Kilbane scores."
That was before I went. That was before I actually went to Everton there as well. Yeah, so it wouldn't necessarily been. Yeah, scored. That was the only goal I scored at the Gladys Street end, I think it was, as well. Okay, so, the famous end there at Goodison. But I think in general, if I'm looking at it, the late 90s when I got into the Premier League, the amount of players that we would have had, even down to the likes of David Connolly that were in around Premier League clubs. I think he might have even been playing in Holland at the time, but certainly there were so many. Of course, Robbie Keane was about to make his move. Niall Quinn scoring consistently. We would have had so many players that were scattered throughout.
But that was it. It's always been like double figures. You've always been having lads scoring double figures, and that's one of the things. Even with this season, is I think there's only 9 scorers as well. It's like Shane Long 2 goals, Jeff Hendrick 2 goals. Jeff Hendrick's last goal was in October.
Yeah.
Kieran Clark was up there as like one of the top scorers, and you start thinking.
Do you know what you think you probably judge it as well on? The amount of players that we had playing Premier League football then that actually weren't getting in the Irish squad. If you're in the Premier League now, it's a given you're in the squad. That's the way that it is.
But that happened with the lad Obafemi at Southampton. As soon as he's kind of coming off the bench for a few minutes, you're sort of looking at it thinking, is he going to declare for us? Whereas 15 years ago, you're sort of like, well, he's got to prove himself a bit more,
Yeah.
But it's interesting, even in the Herald there as well about Sean Maguire. That's who you're sort of looking at. He's the one who, at the moment, is the great hope of actually progressing through, because at every stage he's been in his career, since he's come back from Ireland, to Ireland and went back across, he's always sort of kind of met each kind of demand and met it, he sort of kind of failed at Dundalk, wasn't getting in. Cork gave him that chance, he was going to walk away, and then he just buckled down really, gets the move over there, and even with his injury, he was out for what, 3-4 months, and he's still in double figures.
Yeah.
So you're sort of hoping that, it's a mad, the last day of the championship is just crazy, it's brilliant, but you're just really hoping that if he can get into the Premier League, either with Preston or if it's next season or whatever, that he just keeps on rising up.
I think what he's done now, I mean, there's
the table. Just to briefly explain to everybody, so Preston are on 70 points, Derby are on 72 points. They're both playing teams who are battling relegation this weekend.
Yeah.
It's Preston are playing
Burton
are playing Burton. Burton are on 41 points, but Barnsley are playing Derby and they're also on 41 points. So neither of those two teams have an easy last.
A point for Derby's enough. You look at the goal difference, a point for Derby's enough. That's the thing. So Preston need Barnsley, who just say that's something that does go in the favour, that Barnsley need that win. At Derby though, it's unlikely. It is unlikely.
Yeah.
But there is that outside chance for them as well. But just in relation to Sean as well, though, his goals to minutes ratio is outstanding. It's simply outstanding this season, and given his injury that you've spoken about. But the other thing about it is, I was actually talking to David Weir about it a few weeks ago, who's managed at Forest this season. He was actually mentioning Sean Maguire. Said, he's impressed me and how he's gone about things. But Preston now, I don't know what they paid Cork for him. It was 150 grand, 100 grand.
Was it?
He's a £2 million player to Preston now. Something I spoke about now earlier on when Preston was signing a lot of the players. Alan Brown's another player that they signed from Cork City. He's a £1 million plus player. If you get the game time, our lads will continuously prove that they're good enough to actually make the step up. Preston has sat on now 2 massive assets to the club. Even if they weren't going to go to the Premier League, with Preston, which is unlikely, as I said before, they could go to a really good Championship club if necessary, with a view to having a serious crack at getting back into the Premier League, and that's the thing.
It's kind of what you say about kind of young English managers, isn't it? That the only way they're going to get to the Premier League is by getting the team promoted. But you're sort of looking at Sean Maguire, And maybe we're coming from the point of view, obviously, we a bit close from over here. You see him at Cork, you saw him every week just banging in goals. But he's gone over there and he's scoring straight away. And he's had, like, surely the managers are looking at him thinking, like, this lad, if we want to get promoted and he stays fit, and like barring that few months, and it was a bad hamstring injury, at Cork he was just playing constantly. Yeah. That's one of the things the managers are going to look at, especially in that league, is players who can deal with playing as he Saturday, Tuesday. So whether that might be kind of in the manager's heads now is debatable, but you would hope that he will get to the Premier League. And I know what you're saying, that even if they're playing for a high championship team, that's going to be good enough now to get into the Orient squad for scoring goals. But you still want to see players get into the Premier League. And
I'm convinced it'll come again. I'm convinced that we are doing things right. I think our lads in the League of Ireland now are playing it to such a level now that they're able to make that step up. I think fitness, diets, everything now is totally different. That we know how to look after our bodies more as youngsters, as players, when you're coming into the game. But I think in general with a lot of the lads, I think it maybe it's the mindset. When you go over, it's almost that little bit of you're a bit daunted about going in. That is the case. No matter what anyone says, they go in. Some lads can go in and they can breeze it, but you only need to look at Daryl Hogan. You only need to look at Andy Boyle. For whatever reason, they're not making an impression. A manager changes as well, because the managers in the Championship is changing constantly. Simon Grayson leaves. He's signed 2 players. All of a sudden now, Alex Neil goes into Preston, and they just doesn't quite fancy him. And that's the luck, a little bit of luck that you need as well.
Yeah, that pathway though is now very well worn. You go to England, you fail, you come home, you take a little bit of time to recover, you go again. This time it's like, well, I'm going to make it.
You don't even need to fail now. You can actually have the pathway. We know there's a pathway here for the lads. That's the thing. So you don't necessarily need to get your head hell bent on going over to England. Personally,
bred in. It's been bred into kids since they're God knows how long.
Personally, though, Dave, I think there would be a reluctance if my lad was playing now and there was a big push for him to go to England. Yes, of course, you'd want him to get the development and the coaching. But where is his career going to go if he goes into one of the top clubs? It's very, it's highly. What do we say the chances were of progressing through? I think it's 0.0034 or something. It's ridiculous stats that have actually going to make it through an academy system over in England. So there'd be a real reluctance on me.
Pictures here from the Rovers Bowls game recently. So it's Graham Burke and Dylan Watts in that one.
Well, they're like at the moment they're 2 of the standout players in the league. Like Dylan Watts has come back. Well, so you started off at UCD, got signed by Leicester, and similarly he went over to Leicester. Had a couple of injuries in the second season and was basically told you need to go on loan somewhere. I think it was Dave Henderson who managed to get him back at Bowes, one of the scouts there, who's now gone to Shells. Like, he's been fantastic.
I saw the Rovers game the other week and he was man of the match. He was brilliant, wasn't he?
Yeah, like, he's just, like, we were chatting to Keith Long after. It's actually interesting. Like, he lives on the same road as Keith Long. He's known him since he was like a kid and stuff. But like, for someone who's that sort of, he looks light and he looks as if maybe he can be pushed off the ball. But he was fantastic. He was like, he set up the goal for the equaliser. He was driving forward. He was nicking balls in front of the back four. Like, he was you're sort of bred now, kind of told, well, there's either a defensive midfielder or a midfielder who goes forward. Whereas this lad was doing it all. And like, obviously it's a Bowes and Rovers match. It was quite intense, but he actually backed it up. He scored against Derry. He done very well against Cork City as well. So you're hoping, I think there's reports there today as well in the Irish Sun that Millwall are looking at him as well. Yeah. But like, you're looking at some of these lads, and like Graham Burke as well. Graham Burke's a prime example, someone who failed, went over to England, but he just didn't make it at Aston Villa. I don't think not making it at Aston Villa is failing. He went to Notts County, and by all accounts it was just the football didn't suit him. It was Route 1, and you're not going to get the best out of it.
The other thing as well, saying, obviously I've come up through the structure there, playing in every league over there in England. The perception of maybe clubs as well, when you're signing a player from a Premier League club. We had David Beckham, of course, famously at Preston. We had numerous players at various clubs I've been at that come in. David Beckham actually was a success. He only played a few games, went on to have a half-decent career, David Beckham, as well as you both. But the amount of lads that would have come in, if I'm looking at, for instance, I was at Coventry, lads came in there for Coventry from, I think we had one from Arsenal, Man United, and attitude was questioned immediately. Yeah. And that is the thing, it's almost as if there's a stigma attached around signing a loan player. You've got to go in and make an impression. It's not necessarily even in a game, you've got to make an impression in training. Yeah. You've got to show exactly what you're capable of doing, all round in your very first training session, and managers are so quick to judge a player.
Players would as well. You wouldn't make a judgment on a player like that, wouldn't you?
And a lot of the Premier League clubs now, they're giving the players to lower league clubs, saying we'll pay the wages as long as they play. So there's pressure to play them, and if you're not playing them, it's kind of like, they're not for me, thanks very much, you're going back.
I think that seemed to be the bit of situation with Graham. He was at Notts County. It just wasn't working out for him at all. And like, he came back and he was having sort of he was getting very frustrated with himself. He was getting angry at himself. He was having a bit of like, issues with that. He got sent off. He scored and got sent off on his debut, and he got sent off again against Pats. And it's one of these. But it's one of these aspects with players who do come back, and you're sort of thinking, it's, as you were saying there, they probably have it in the head that they've been a failure.
Yeah.
Whereas
They've tried something.
Exactly. They've tried their weight, you know. And
shows balls out, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And but the thing with Graham is as well, and like, fair play to Rovers as well. He's come back and like they're really they're trying to build a team around him. And like, see, results haven't been great, but like, he scored 9 goals in 15 games, and I think since Patrick McElhenney left, he's sort of taken over this mantle of scoring all these like kind of top class goals and
from midfield.
Like, well, he sort of plays more in the hole, like similar to McElhenney. He sort of be the creative player, number 10 sort of thing. And like his goal the other night against Cork, it's just like he plucks it out of the air, does a little shimmy, gets past the midfielder, and then before you know it, right foot. He was actually quite honest. We were talking to him about it, and we're like, well, what's your technique? Like, what do you do? And he just goes, just smash it.
Yeah.
And like sometimes you have to, like, that's fair enough. Obviously in the box it's a bit different, but outside the box just smash it.
Yeah.
So but he's just that's one of the really promising things with Graham this season is that he's built on last season. You can see that he's actually learned a bit from last year, because like some of the stuff he was doing last year was a bit different.
Can Rovers keep these players, or like is that the difficulty here, that they invest the time? You know, they're working on making sure that they're keeping their educations and all that kind of stuff as well, and they get to a level and then they sell them. I think that's going to be Rovers' model for the future. Like, and so the business model is to put them on slightly longer term contracts and get more than 150 grand, or a share of whatever they get the next year.
We need to be. I feel there's always something that we all felt for a long time, that the League of Ireland clubs are getting a raw deal from the transfer fees without a shadow of a doubt. They are.
But the Dundalk lads, like they lost Boyle, Horgan, Richie Towell, Hubin the first time. Who else has gone? Dal Horgan mentioned. Like, they all went for nothing. These are lads who played most of them played in the Europa League. Yeah. You know, it's just
no-brainer for clubs to sign them.
And I suppose Dundalk now are in the position, and even Cork, where they can give these slightly longer. Cork now have gone to giving contracts for the full year. You know, it seems like a novelty, and we shouldn't really still be talking about that as something that's a positive, that a club is giving a player a contract for the 365 days a year. But it's
so risky though, because we've seen clubs give players contracts and then suddenly not be able to pay them because the market.
Yeah, but I think that was at a point where maybe the wages were too high. And now it's a bit more common sense that's going about it. And even with on the opposite kind of side on the scale, to say someone like Graham Burke who's come back and with Rovers with a model like the lad Aaron Bulger, like this week, like he was fantastic in the first half against Cork. You know, he's coming up against Morrissey and Conor McCormick, and he's like 18 years old, like he's getting the ball. He's just always, you'll know, this is midfield.
He looks great, doesn't he?
But that's it. Like, he's small, but if you actually approach him, he's like he's hard, like, you know.
Yeah.
And obviously the quote from like Stephen Bradley was great. Kind of probably too early in the morning to word for word, but he's a nasty little effer, you know. Yeah. And he is, and you want to say that, but it's not just that about him, you know. He's kind of, ball comes to him and he knows whether to play a first time, play where he's coming from, or to turn. He doesn't even, he can hear sometimes the calls, and sometimes he's not getting a call from the defender of what to do when he's getting the ball back. He knows. At 18 years of age, I know it seems like a simple thing for someone to know what they're doing when they get the ball, but a lot of times you can take a touch and he's getting smashed straight away, whereas he just knows what he's
the new John Giles, basically.
That's it. There's no pressure. Like, he's actually going to score 20 goals in the Premier League next season as well.
I would say
all our problems.
It's something I would have heard of. You know, a friend of mine, John Fallon over here. You know young John, I suppose, well. But John, his dad, is someone that's scouted over in England for a long time. Really likes him. Told me about him for a while, but. It is, again, is it the right time? Is it still probably best for him to stay here for another year or two? Yeah. And all of a sudden he gets to 20, 21.
You'd think it would be. Like, I know at the moment he's doing his leaving cert through, again, this is Rovers looking to the future a little bit, and they're getting a lot of grief because of what's happening with the first team at the moment, and that's fair enough, but like, he's in with another couple of lads from the 17s and the 19s, well, 17s, doing their leaving cert with a private school in Dublin, you know. But he needs to stay really for another couple of years, because Rovers, you would think, will still play European football if he's going to get that experience. you wonder, is he quite good enough at the moment to go straight into, say, a Championship team or a Premier League team that you're looking at? Is he going to be one of them who'll go over and then get lost and then come back, or just have a bit of patience? Like you mentioned earlier on about defenders maybe peaking at, say, 27 and 28 and getting careers being prolonged. Like, there's no rush at the moment for him. Like, he's still only a kid, and you would hope that it'll be
first team football now, a year and a half first team football now versus a year and a half sitting playing whatever those meaningless under 23 like that Guardiola kind of scoffs at, even though they've invested hundreds of millions in that team.
And the talent that's within the academy there. I don't know if I'd said to you, I went to watch England under 18s against Argentina last month. The standard is just off the scale, and these lads are getting nowhere near Man City, Chelsea's first team. There's a lot scattered around. There's a couple of lads at Middlesbrough, I think within that. I think there's one lad at Villa. There's actually the goalkeepers at Fleetwood. But there will be nowhere near the first teams at any of those bigger clubs. But the talent that they have is just remarkable. Whatever the FA have been doing over the last 10 years, they've certainly getting it right at youth level.
Is the goalkeeper playing for Fleetwood first team?
He's played, I think, the first team. He wouldn't be regular, but he was the first player to represent England who's played for Fleetwood, who's come through the system there.
That's pretty amazing. The level of scouting that they're doing is that.
It sort of goes back to what you were saying there about the talent, as you mentioned earlier, but if you're playing in these games that, like, you're probably finishing 5-4 or 4-3 and stuff, like, what does it really... What are they really gaining from it in terms of becoming a professional? Yeah, I think did Chelsea just win the FA Youth Cup? I think
they did.
They did.
So
that's I think that's 5 on the bounce for Chelsea. Chelsea is so dominant, so dominant because of the wages they're paying. There's lads on $1 million a year that's within that academy, plus that's within that youth team.
Really good news for Watford and the other teams that the players are all
exactly.
Right, so I just want to play you this. We obviously have a weekly League of Ireland podcast here on Off the Ball. Here's news of now former Athlone manager Aaron Callaghan quitting his job almost live on the Off the Ball League of Ireland podcast.
We do have some breaking news. It is now 4:15 on Wednesday afternoon when we're recording our podcast. I got a WhatsApp a little while ago from Aaron Callaghan, and it reads, Jamie, I'm gone from Athlone. Here is my comment. Thank you. So Aaron Callaghan has resigned as the Athlone Town AFC manager. He's given us an exclusive here on Off the Ball. We're the only media outlet who Aaron has spoken to. And he said, changing a football club's culture is one of the most difficult leadership challenges a manager incurs. That's because the club structure comprises of interlocking set of goals, roles, processes, values, communications practices, attitudes and behaviours. To raise the bar in any industry, you need to set professional standards and evolve with the competition. Somehow this message never landed. The players and staff have my utmost respect and I wish them every success. We tried to get Aaron on the show and he's unavailable to speak to us this week. He did go on to say that the last straw was on Monday night when there was no warm-up gear and no physio. So that was the game, of course, in the Leinster Senior Cup. No warm-up gear and no physio. So there you go, Athlone Town. If you want to do well, if you want to have good players and a good manager, you need to treat them properly. The results this season, if I can find the First Division table, which I'll do very quickly here, just to have a little look at Athlone's results so far. Athlone Town, bottom of the table, 9 matches played, 0 wins, 1 draw, 8 defeats, 6 goals scored, 39 goals conceded. My question to Athlone Town is, who are you going to get as your new manager who will want to work in that environment with little or no support from board level, it seems? Unfortunately, the playing staff are quite young. They're trying their best. The coaching staff are trying their best, but they need more. They had no bus as well recently when they were hammered down in Wexford. The players and staff drove themselves to the match. There was no bus available. So, if that's the attitude, unfortunately, at Athlone Town, the way is only down for you.
Maybe Roddy will come back, will he?
He's already been there.
Again, though.
Yeah, well, I don't think even Roddy will come back for that. No, it's actually quite sad what's happened in Athlone. Like, for it can be quite famous and vaunted League of Ireland club. And see Jamie there, you heard the stats there. It's just
not great.
It's not great, and it's gone past the point of even like kind of not to do with laugh at it, but like it's actually quite sad. I was actually there last year when obviously situation was happening with the match fixing scandal when that was kicking off, and I was going up, and it's actually a half decent ground up there, you know. But it's just a club that's just been slowly dying, unfortunately, and I don't see any way where I just don't see what's going to happen, because I was again just been reading up on stuff for the last few weeks on what's going on there, and just people have like not just fallen out of love with it, they just don't want to get involved, like businesses up there and stuff. It's just and that's what you need up there, and especially but it's just falling apart, unfortunately.
You talking about the way that Rovers are building for the future, and the criticism that the team have shifted at the top end. You definitely are hearing stories about them encouraging kids to continue with their education and to be better human beings, and to just kind of, we're going to look after your kids properly.
Yeah, like stuff like that's going to get scoffed at, isn't it? Because like, I remember Man City once coming out saying they wanted a more holistic approach, you know, and it's understandable. Like, Rovers are a big club, and the first team are always going to be the ones that are going to get judged. Like, fans are going to want to see what's happening with the first team, you know. But at the same time, sometimes you need to look to the future a little bit. You need to try something different. And it's not just Rovers are saying this and kind of having these little kind of sound bites here and there. They're actually putting like the structures for it in place. They're not the only ones. Like, there's other clubs who are going to be who will do the same. Like,
but there are clubs putting pressure on players as well not to continue their education.
Well, yeah. Like, I wrote it in my column a couple of weeks ago. So like, there was one League of Ireland player, only a young lad. He's coming through and he's in college now. It's not one of the colleges that's actually the link up with the club, but he's on a scholarship in college, and he's getting offered €100 a week and being told, well, yeah, but you can't play for your college. And then he's saying, all right, that's fair enough, not realising that he'd lose a scholarship. And it was only when the parents get involved and people realise what's going on. And eventually it came to a kind of an agreement that he could play for his college and stuff. But that's another aspect where clubs are right to have these links. I know, kind of like, you've got DIT with kind of up in Dundalk, Institute of Technology, with Dundalk, like UCC sponsor Cork City. Like, Pats have a link with Maynooth and stuff, and if clubs are going to be kind of espousing this kind of way to go, it needs to be real. Like,